Today, we are doing something a little different. Usually, I like to post about crimes that occurred a long time ago, just so that we have all the details around it. But since this case has become so huge in the media recently, I thought it would be interesting to talk about it. However, I should mention that since investigations into some of the charges involved are still ongoing, I will present this in a chronological format. The Murdaugh family is a prominent dynasty of lawyers from South Carolina's Low Country. The family has a reputation for being politically influential and powerful. The family has been involved in many high-profile legal cases in the region over the years, and their story gained national attention in recent years due to a series of scandals and tragedies. In 2017, Paul Murdaugh was involved in a hit-and-run incident in which he crashed his car into a curb and fled the scene. Later, the police found him and charged him with the offense of driving under the influence, DUI. However, the case was later dropped due to a lack of evidence. The investigation into the hit-and-run case was controversial because Paul's father, Alex Murdaugh, was a prominent lawyer in the area and had a history of involvement in the local legal system. Some people in the community believed that the Murdaugh family had received preferential treatment in the case. Gloria Satterfield was a housekeeper who worked for the Murdaugh family for many years and was particularly close to Paul Murdaugh, the son of Alex and Maggie Murdaugh. On February 2, 2018, Satterfield reportedly fell down the steps of the Murdaugh house after tripping over the family dogs. She was admitted to hospital for treatment, but later died on February 26 at the age of 57. After her death, Alex Murdaugh allegedly arranged for her sons to sue him in order to collect money from his insurance company, brokering a $4.3 million settlement. However, Satterfield's sons reportedly never received the money. We will learn more about the investigation into Gloria's death later on in the video. In February 2019, Mallory Beach, a 19-year-old woman, was killed in a boating accident in Beaufort County, South Carolina. The boat was owned by Paul Murdaugh, the youngest son of Alex Murdaugh, a lawyer and patriarch of the Murdaugh family, who was driving the boat while allegedly under the influence of alcohol. Several other young people were on the boat at the time of the accident and were injured. The investigation into Mallory Beach's death initially focused on the boat crash itself. Authorities conducted interviews with witnesses and passengers, including Paul Murdaugh, who was driving the boat at the time of the crash. The investigation became more complicated when Paul Murdaugh's 2017 hit-and-run case, the subsequent investigation into it, and Alex Murdaugh's involvement came to light. There were also allegations of a cover-up involving local law enforcement officials and the Murdaugh family, who were seen as a prominent legal dynasty in the area. The investigation was eventually taken over by the South Carolina Law Enforcement Division due to concerns of a conflict of interest with the local authorities. In September 2019, Paul Murdaugh was indicted on charges of boating under the influence resulting in great bodily injury or death, as well as charges of providing alcohol to minors, following the boat crash that led to Beach's death. However, it is important to mention that Paul Murdaugh was not indicted in connection to Mallory Beach's death. On June 7, 2021, the bodies of Paul Murdaugh and his mother, Maggie Murdaugh, were found at their family's hunting lodge in South Carolina. Paul and his mother had been shot to death, and their bodies were found near the dog kennels on the property. Alex Murdaugh, Paul's father and Maggie's husband, called 911 to report the deaths, and initially claimed he had been at home at the time of the shootings. It's important to mention that Paul Murdaugh's trial for the 2019 boating under the influence charge did not take place as he died before it could happen. The case was being investigated and going through legal proceedings, but after Paul's death, the charges against him were dropped. After the deaths of Paul and Maggie Murdaugh, law enforcement began a large-scale investigation into the murders. The SLED took over the case from the Colleton County Sheriff's Office due to the Murdaugh family's close ties to the local law enforcement. The investigation was aided by the release of an incriminating Snapchat video taken by Paul. The video, filmed just minutes before the murders took place, showed Paul and his mother Maggie inside their vehicle, with Paul recording while driving. In the background, a voice that sounded like Alex Murdaugh's could be heard slurring his words and using profanity. The video was significant because it contradicted Alex Murdaugh's initial claims that he had not been present at the scene of the murders and helped the prosecution establish a timeline of events. The investigation was complicated by the fact that the murders took place on the Murdaugh family's sprawling hunting estate, where access was tightly controlled. However, the investigators were able to collect evidence and conduct extensive interviews with family members and employees. In September 2021, Alex Murdaugh resigned from his law firm, Peters, Murdaugh, Parker, Eltsroth, and Dietrich, due to allegations of embezzlement. The new partners began reviewing the firm's books. They discovered that Murdaugh had been misappropriating funds from the law firm, with estimates ranging from $1 million to $10 million. The South Carolina Law Enforcement Division then began an investigation into Murdaugh's financial activities. As part of that investigation, SLED also looked into the deaths of Mallory Beach, Gloria Satterfield, and the Murdaughs. The investigation focused on the handling of funds in Gloria Satterfield's case, in which Murdaugh was involved as the attorney for the victim's family. Murdaugh allegedly mishandled the funds from the settlement and used them for personal expenses, including private school tuition, travel, and payments to a former employee of his law firm. The SLED announced that Murdaugh had been indicted on charges of conspiracy to commit insurance fraud, and obtaining property by false pretenses on October 7, 2021. The charges were related to the alleged embezzlement of funds from the wrongful death settlement. According to the indictment, Murdaugh and a co-conspirator conspired to obtain an insurance settlement by making false statements, representations, and promises to the victim's sons, who were the beneficiaries of the settlement. The indictment also alleged that Murdaugh obtained property by false pretenses by using the settlement funds for personal expenses. Murdaugh was arrested on the same day as the indictment and released on a $20,000 bond. The attorney for the Satterfield estate announced that they'd never received a settlement. In June 2022, South Carolina law enforcement officials were given permission from the Satterfield family to exhume their mother's remains after her death was not reported to the coroner at the time, nor was an autopsy performed. However, the investigation into Gloria Satterfield's death is still ongoing. Alex Murdaugh's trial for the murder of his wife and son began on January 25, 2023. As part of the trial, it was revealed that Murdaugh struggled with a painkiller addiction for several years. He publicly admitted to using opioids since he was injured in a boating accident in 2015. Murdaugh said that he was prescribed the drugs to manage the pain from his injuries, but he eventually became addicted to them. In September 2021, Murdaugh entered rehab for his addiction to opioids and alcohol. He reportedly checked into an out-of-state facility for a 30-day program. In December 2021, Murdaugh was arrested on charges of distribution of a controlled substance and obtaining a controlled substance by fraud. The charges were related to allegations that he had used his position as a lawyer to forge prescriptions for opioids. According to court documents, Murdaugh used the names of his family members and others to obtain the drugs, which he would then use himself or sell to others. Murdaugh's attorney has said that his addiction to opioids was a contributing factor to his alleged criminal behavior, but he was in recovery and taking responsibility for his actions. On March 2, 2023, Alex Murdaugh was found guilty of murdering his wife and son in an attempt to conceal his financial crimes. He faces 30 years to life in prison without parole for each murder charge. Murdaugh had repeatedly denied being at the scene of the murders, but admitted to lying on the stand due to his addiction to painkillers. Have you seen the documentary on the Murdaughs? What did you think about the investigation into Gloria Satterfield's death? Let me know in the comments. I would love to hear what you have to say. Also, consider giving this video a like if you liked it. That really helps with the algorithm. Additionally, consider subscribing to the channel for more true crime. Till next time, signing off. This has been Christina.